All right, getting ready for the quiz number 7 coming up tomorrow. A couple of things we're going to take mention of here in this video, so hopefully, congratulations if you're watching it right now, you're taking a good step forward in making sure you understand everything. Up here in the top part, our big enemy is going to be making sure we're doing the right operation. What do I mean? What I mean is these first two problems have a plus and a minus in the middle. We are not multiplying like we are in these two, just to give you a heads up. So again, the plus basically means nothing's being changed in number 1. So I'm just looking for like terms. But I want to write them in standard form. Biggest exponent to least. So I look around, I'm like, okay, x to the 4th is the biggest one I see. All right. Then x to the 3rd, ooh, I see a couple of them. Watch the signs in front. Positive 8, negative 10, negative 2x to the 3rd. Again, just combining like terms. Don't mess with the exponents. Not when we're adding and subtracting. Negative 7x squared, I don't see any more of those. Negative 5x, positive 1x. Again, watch the signs. I got a buck, I owe somebody 5, now I only owe 4. And then just a plus 1 for good measure. Biggest degree to smallest, and that's all that I'm doing. Now minus, a little different situation. I need to distribute that negative through. So I'll keep everything at the start. Distribute the negative through. In other words, I'm just changing signs on each term that's in the second set of parentheses. And then again, biggest exponent to least. 7 plus 8 is 15x squared. Again, all adding and subtracting. Plus 6x, because that's my only x term. And negative 10 minus 6 is negative 16. Okay, so for adding and subtracting, again, just combining like terms, possibly distributing a negative. What happens when we get to something larger, like we do in number 3? No plus or minus in the middle. I am multiplying. Some of you may like doing the distributing and going through that route. That's A-okay. However, I'm going to go with what seems to be our regular way of going about things. The box, because again, we like the organization that it provides for us in combining like terms. Now again, I'm multiplying here now. So again, you multiply the coefficients, you multiply the numbers in front, but you add the exponents. So 3 times 2 is 6. Add my exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Add the exponents. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9x squared. And again, this is just some detail work. Make sure you're catching on to all of your exponents. Oh, excuse me. Negative times negative is positive 15x. And here again is why I like this method better than the distributing. All my like terms are lined up for me now. Start with the biggest one up here in the upper left corner. My x squareds are nice and lined up for me, as are my x's and my minus 6. Okay? Multiply to fill the box, or distribute, whichever way you're doing it, but then you're just combining like terms. Notice I didn't add those up and call it x to the 4th or something like that. Now, number 4, we have options. This means I have 3 of these. Now, if you go in ahead and messed with the pattern from before, that's okay. That's an option that you had. But if that's not something you remember, again, we talked about how you can take these 2 at a time. I can do a box, I can do FOIL, I can even do an x minus 3 squared pattern. Okay, to help save a little bit of time here, if I boxed or FOILed this out, this is what I would get. And so at this point, what I would do is I'd have my x squared minus 6x plus 9 that I got from here. And I would just use the x minus 3 that I have left and multiply that through just like I did in number 3. So add your exponents, multiply your coefficients. 1x times 9 is 9x, negative 3x squared. Negative times negative is positive 18x. Negative times positive is negative 27. So at this point, I have my x to the third. There's my x squared terms. Again, be careful. We're only adding. We're combining like terms now. Negative 3 and negative 6 is negative 9x squared. Okay, the only time exponents change when we're filling the box. 18 plus 9 is 27x minus 27. Okay, I'm good. But again, if you remember the pattern from when we did it, you can absolutely use that here. Okay. Evaluate the following functions. Evaluate. Plug this number in for x. So negative 2. Negative 4 times negative 3 would be positive 12 plus 3, which is 15. Now in this case, oops, let me slant that a little more. In this case, the absolute value isn't going to do much for us because there's not a negative number inside. Okay? But whatever comes out of that absolute value is always positive. So this is negative 2 times 15, which is negative 30, and that would be my f of negative 3. If there's more than one place for x, we can handle that. And again, it's always in your best interest to take the extra 5 seconds and actually write in where the substitution goes. It'll help you keep from making a goofy error. Now again, I like to do things in my head. If you want to use the calculator, you could. But here's the key. I'm doing this first. Don't multiply these and then cube. You won't get the right answer. Negative 1 cubed is negative 1. Times negative 2 is positive 2. And then here, negative 1 squared, and you can use the calculator for that too if you want to, be 1, times 5 is 5. So I have to be careful of these things. And 2 plus 5 is going to be 7. Okay? But again, calculator's legal. You could even do the store function on that if you really wanted to. All right, senior class is selling t-shirts for a prom fundraiser. Selling the t-shirts for $12.50 each. The shirts cost the senior class $60 for the design print plus $4.50 per each shirt. Write the profit function. Remember, profit is sales minus expenses. Selling the shirts for $12.50 each. Now be careful. When we're talking about each, we don't know how many shirts they sold. See a word like each, that basically means an X is going to go there because we'd multiply it times the number of shirts we sold. Minus our expenses. Well, it costs us $60 for the print, but that'd be the same for anything, so that doesn't get X. Plus $4.50 for each shirt. And then here we want to simplify this, so when we go to find a value, it's a little easier. So I'm going to distribute that through. So I'd have 1250x minus 60 minus 450x. And I can combine like terms. 8x minus 60. That is my profit function. Sales minus expenses, simplified. Find the profit on 125 shirts. That's what X equals. So 8 times 125 minus 60. And I find out I'd make $940. So that's basically going into a lot of the stuff that we've been doing here lately. But we always, on these quizzes, like to make sure that we're still okay with former topics, like, uh-oh, factoring, oh, Harty. It's not going away. Okay, so let's keep talking about it, but let's keep trying things. Okay, luckily, I don't see anything in front of x squared. I can do it like a diamond. Multiply to get 21, add to get 10. Again, if this isn't your strength, go to the calculator and start dividing numbers into 21 and find pairs until you find a pair that adds up to 10. Okay, we're not solving these. There's no equals 0. I just factored, I'm done. Okay? Now when I go to some of the others, now again, you have choices. On a one like 9, I think we could do this without slide and divide. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to do slide and divide. Let me try this one without it. I'll do slide and divide on number 11 when we get there in case some of you are trying to remember that. Or maybe if you like slide and divide, you do it right now and see if you get the same answer as I do. Here's why I don't think I need slide and divide. What multiplies to get 7? Don't have many choices, do you? It's 7 and 1. So I write it down. How many ways can I multiply to get 3? Well, 1. Okay. But I'd have to figure out where the 3 goes and where the 1 goes. Well, here's where I have to do a little bit of thinking. If I put the 3 here, 7 times 3 is 21. That's going to be too big. So I would put the 3 here and the 1 here, and then I look for my signs. Positive 3 means they're either both positive or both negative. Well, since my sign in the middle is negative, it means these both are. And I'm done. Now again, slide and divide gets you the same answer. So try it if that's one that you're working on and see if it works for you. But what I always want to do before I do any of these problems is look to see, do we have anything in common? For number 10, we do. What are these both divisible by? What goes into 8 and 24? Right, 8 does, and I also see I can take an x out of each one. So I do that first, and now it's like doing the distributive property backwards. I already got the 8. I got 1x, I need 2, so I need another one. 8 times what gets me to negative 24, negative 3, and I already have the x. I'm done. No more factoring. So sometimes that's all I'm going to be able to do is take out a common factor. 11, again, this is one I probably would slide and divide on. If you're slide and divide fans, maybe you did that on number 9 as well. If you like guess and check, that's okay too. So here I'll slide my 6 down. And now I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 5. So I'm thinking 24 here. So either in my head or with my calculator, I start jotting down all the possible combinations that multiply to 24. But I know one of them has to be negative, because that's the only way I can get a negative product. And then since it's one of each sign, they'd need to be 5 apart from each other. Those are 5 apart from each other. So I'm like, okay, 3 and 8. I want a negative, so the bigger number has to be negative. But don't forget, slide and dividers. What do we still have to do? That's right, we need to divide, because we did the slide part. We haven't done the divide part yet. Now here's where I have to be careful. Oh, 6 doesn't go into 3 evenly. I'll just slide the 6 back. Reduce 3 over 6. If you're not sure, if you are not sure, do the right thing. Get some help. What divides into 8 and 6? 2 does. Once those fractions are reduced completely, now if it doesn't go in nice, I can swing my values back to the front. But I have to remember to do all of it. And if this is still a struggle for you, you're like, okay, I saw a couple, I'm not going to remember that. Go back to my YouTube page, type in factoring. Go to my website, type in factoring. You can even get a worksheet to look at to try and work through some more of these if you need to. These last two come down to something else we've talked about a lot. The need to know your perfect squares, at least through 10. If you know these off the top of your head, looking at a problem like this isn't a problem. Now, I can't just square root them. That's not what factoring is. But what I can do is I can say, hey, I square x to get x squared. I square 1 to get 1. And when I'm doing a difference, it's plus and minus. X at the start of each, 1 at the end of each. Woohoo! So I can use my idea of a square root of my perfect square but I do it to come up with a factoring way of doing it. Here, what do I square to get 16? 4, and I have the x. What do I square to get 81? 9. 2 sets of parentheses, plus minus. Put the 4x at the start of each. Put the 9 at the last. Bang! Again, though, it takes practice to be able to see and know these. If you're still blowing that off, don't. Time is getting of the essence here, people. We've got to know these things. As we flip over, okay, sketch the graph. Now, for a lot of you, the simplest way, since we're just sketching, is going to be like, okay, let me type this in my calculator. Now, I would hope that you would remember that an x squared, if there's just a plus number, it means your vertex value, let me get back up here, is just going to be up 5. I need to know where that greatest y point is since it's opening downward. And then I can either use the chart or I can use my pattern to get my sketch. Because when I'm going to do domain and range, my domain again is my x values, left to right. Well, on every one of these, here's a secret. It's negative infinity to infinity every time. So that should be the easy one. My range, though, it doesn't go forever up and down. Because remember, range is my y values. But they have to go bottom to top. Well, Mr. H just goes down forever. I agree. It's negative infinity. But it doesn't go up forever. And that's why I need to know where this top of my value is. My y value there is 5. And that's my range. End behavior, reminders. With your x's, one will always be positive, one will always be negative. It doesn't matter the order you put them in. What matters is remembering x is positive infinity means what's going on as it goes to the right. What's happening to my y value? Because that's what f of x is. Well, it's going down. Okay, down is towards negative infinity. So x heading to negative infinity is what's going on when x goes to the left. Well, that's over here. What's happening to y? It's going down toward negative infinity. Okay, that's it. So whenever you're doing these, the x part always is going to have one of each. The f of x, it depends on what your graph looks like. Okay, so for instance here, we'll go back in. Again, my caret button here is helping for my exponent when I don't have one that's just squared. Now here I notice something a little different. Now, if I want to, could I go to my chart, get myself some values to work with so I could try to be a little more accurate with my sketch? Sure. Never a bad idea to try and be a little more accurate with what we're doing. Okay, so I get my graph. And I say, all right, domain, oh yeah, Harty just got done saying that's negative infinity to infinity, because this keeps going forever to the left, forever to the right, and stretches out. But in this case, the range does the same thing. Down, 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 up, 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 up. And so then my only thing left is to look at my end behavior. And again, as x goes to positive infinity, as x goes to the right, what's happening to y? It's going up. Okay. As x goes to the left, that's what negative infinity is, heading that way. What's happening to y? It's going down. And I'm good. So again, no big deal with those. And then our last couple of questions are review type. Oh, great. Simplify with I. Okay, we have to rationalize the denominator because we cannot have any i's in the denominator of our final answer. So to get rid of that, we rationalize the denominator. And we do that by changing the sign of I, whatever's in the denominator. If that's plus, we change it to minus. If it was minus, we change it to plus. And we do that to both the numerator and denominator to keep the value of everything the same. So up top, we'll just do some distributing. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times negative I is negative 4I. But down below, we need to do a box or foil on this. And you're going to see how slick this works. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times I is 2I. 2 times negative I is negative 2I. Negative I squared. Ooh, but wait a minute. What does I squared equal? I know this. Oh yeah, negative 1. So this is really negative 1, which makes that positive 1. So when I go to put my like terms together, 4 plus 1 is 5. Negative 2i and positive 2i cancel. No I left in the denominator. Nothing goes into 8 and 4 and 5. I'm done. But that's how I have to simplify this. It has to be switch the sign, distribute out if it's just a number up there. Otherwise, you got to do the box. Got to do foiling. Got to work it out. Solve. Oh, I wish I could write this in huge print. My first job is to get x squared alone. Totally alone. So again, isolate it. Minus 8's got to go. Okay, I got this. Is x squared isolated yet? No. Do not do the square root yet. All right, now it's isolated. Now we're ready to do the square root. But again, be careful. There's so many things that can get you here for half points. First issue, take the square root of a negative. What do I need to do first? Take an I out. Secondly, whenever I have a squared, what's that 2 mean? How many answers are there? There's 2. It's plus or minus. Okay, I squared root of 12, but I'm not quite done, and don't you go to a decimal. Oh, I see like 3.48 or whatever goofy thing it is. I'm going to flip my lid. 2 numbers that multiply to 12. One of them has to be a perfect square. You remember that list we put on the front? One of those. 4 and 3. So we've got x equals plus minus. The square root of 4 is 2 with my I. And then my square root of 3 doesn't break down anymore. So that just stays the way it is. Lots of little things. Plus minus. Okay? The I. Got to remember those things. And then our last one. Write the equation of the circle in standard form by completing the square twice. Okay, folks. We got to do this. We got to see work because a lot of you forgot a big chunk of this last time because you were trying to go too fast. So let's take this in pieces. We're going to divide and conquer here. Whenever you're completing the square, that number in front of x, that's your b term. We're not finding the x value of a vertex. It's just b divided by 2. So negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10, and square it. That 100 gets added to my x group here, but it also gets added to the other side of the equation. Well, why is that? Because you have to keep balance. Otherwise, you're changing the equation. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to both. And then I repeat the process with y. Take my b value, just divide it by 2, and square it. And again, that 9 gets added to both sides. Now we're just about to a point where we're ready to have this set and get it into equation of a circle. X, I can either say what do I multiply or multiply by itself to get to 100, or remember, if you've shown the work, it's just the b divided by 2 value, negative 10. I can do the same thing with y. I can try to figure out what multiplies to 9 and adds to 6, or I can just take the easy way. Oh, b divided by 2 is positive 3. You're right. Negative 45 plus 100 is 55, plus 9 is 64. There is my standard form equation of a circle. And my center, again, because the actual form of this is x minus h squared, y minus k squared equals r squared, it's the opposite of this. So my h value is the opposite of negative 10, which is 10. My k value is the opposite of positive 3. It's negative 3. And my radius isn't 64. My radius is the square root of 64, which is 8. This is what you're dealing with tomorrow. Again, you've basically got the quiz in front of you. If there's things you're having issues with, go back to YouTube, watch this, look in the playlist. These things are all there. Type in factoring, type in completing the square. You'll get what you need, whether it's a worksheet, a video, whatever it happens to be. And if even after this you're having some issues, I'll be here after today and I'll be here in the morning as well. So take advantage and get going. Progress reports are coming.